everyone and welcome back. My name is Chantal and in this video I want to do a little experiment. If you saw my YouTube short last week, I did an experiment to see how quickly a Tradescanthia cutting that fell off my main plant can root in sphagnum moss. I was so surprised to see in 2 days' time some roots appear. I traditionally used to love water propagation. I'm now starting to love sphagnum moss propagation. This video is going to explore both options to see which method produces roots the quickest. So I've taken some cuttings. I've taken 2 different varieties of Tradescanthia. So I've got the Tradescanthia Sabrina, I've got the Tradescanthia Nanook, and I have a pothos, devil's ivy. And I'm going to propagate both of those plants, both different methods, and I'm going to have a check-in week 1, week 2, week 3 to see how the roots are progressing and which method is working best. But before I go and propagate and do the different methods, let's have a look at my Tradescanthia cutting that I've put in moss 4 days ago now, and I'd like to see what the roots are looking like. I checked this 2 days after putting it into moss and I was really surprised to see that roots had already appeared. So this is 4 days on, so let's have a little look to see how quickly roots are appearing. Gosh, it's incredible. I don't know if you can see, I know there's a bit of moss there, but the moss is attached to a very, very long root. So if you can see, there is a root there, and this is a very long root as well. And this is all after 4 days of propagating in sphagnum moss. So it just shows how quickly, I'm going to put it back because I don't think it's quite ready to pot up, but it just shows how very, very quickly moss can root a plant. So I'm really intrigued to see the different methods with sphagnum moss and water. So I think I'm going to start with the sphagnum moss option. I've got my propagation box here. I think it's important to have a clear box with a clear lid so that your plants can have sufficient light as you're propagating. So let's just pop the lid on there. I'm going to add my sphagnum moss. So you can add a really good layer of your moss. It's quite nice to touch. I just love it. It's such a sensory feel for me to touch the sphagnum moss. Quite a mindful planting time. And then I've got a mister. I'm just going to mist that moss. You don't want it soggy and dripping with water, but you do want a good level of moisture in there. And of course the lid is going to go on, so it will keep that moisture in. So the reason I cut these cuttings earlier is so that the cut can heal. I normally leave it, you can leave it for up to a day. I've left this for 4 hours now and that cut looks healed over. I'm just going to remove the bottom leaves here. Might take that one off as well. So as you can see, there's a nice clear stem here, and I'm just going to pop that into the sphagnum moss like that. And I'm going to repeat and do the Tradescanthia Nanook. So I'm just going to take that leaf off to have a nice clear stem. And you almost want that stem kind of burrowed down in your sphagnum moss. Put it to bed, cover it up. So I've got 2 varieties of Tradescanthia, and I'm also going to go for my pothos, devil's ivy. If you cut it and pop it directly into water, the cut is likely to go a bit mouldy and rot. So it's always best to leave that cutting just to heal over a little bit. So I'm popping that pothos in there and bury it as well. So as you can see, I've got my propagation box here. I've buried all of the stems into the moss, and I'm going to just give it a nice little mist again before putting the lid on top. And I can't wait to see the outcome and which is rooting quicker. Okay, so I'm just going to press them gently, pop my lid on top. I'll pop this in a bright room but out of direct sun because I don't want the leaves of these plants to burn up. So this is my propagation box all ready to experiment with. Let's go and do the water propagation part next. Okay, so let's experiment with water propagation. I've got some water here that I'm going to fill my vases with. So I'm going to fill this half. A little story behind this boot. This boot was given to my mum when I was born. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago because then you'll know how old I am, but over 40 years ago, I'll say that. My mum received flowers in this little boot when I was born, so this is really special to me, and I use it now as a propagation vase in my plant room. So I'm going to fill this, not quite just to the top, but nearly 3/4 full, I would say. So let's start with the devil's ivy. So I'm going to pop these roots in my vase, just there. And I'm going to use this one for my Tradescantia cuttings. And again, I'm just removing that bottom leaf there, and sticking that stem in. And I will check in on all of these cuttings after, well, I might be curious and do a couple of days just to see if there's any update. But I will do a check-in and I'll report back after week 1 just to see where we are. So this one's got quite a few leaves down the bottom, so I just want to remove that because if we leave the leaves in the water, they are likely to go soggy. And I just need to top this one up a bit because that stem isn't quite long enough. Ooh, spilt a bit there. If you ever do water propagation, always make sure that you place these in a bright room out of direct sunlight. And I normally change the water every week, week and a half, possibly even 2 weeks, but I wouldn't stretch it further than that, purely because you'll see some green algae form and you want to keep those roots and the stem really healthy. So make sure if you do water propagation that you change the water quite frequently. We are starting our experiment, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which ones do you think are likely to root the quickest? Do you think it's going to be the sphagnum moss? Do you think it's going to be the water propagation? I'm intrigued to see how the stems are looking after propagating, and I will report back. Thank you for watching. Keep a lookout because I will report back to show you progress updates on the different methods of propagation. And yeah, I can't wait to see which one roots the quickest. I'll see you next time. Bye.